Senator John Neely Kennedy is standing by. Hey, Mr. John, how are you this morning?
Good morning, folks. I'm well, thank you.
The criticism from you aimed at New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu in the wake of the flooding this past weekend. What did you see wrong? Where do you see the mayor's mistakes?
Well, I've tried not to speak to Mitch personally. Look, it's a mess in New Orleans, and I used to live in New Orleans. I understand how people feel. I mean, they've been lied to. They were told that, okay, we're safe now. We've got the levees built to keep the enemy out, the water. But the administration didn't tell people, yeah, we stopped the enemy from without, but we haven't been dealing with the enemy from within. The pumps.
Does this warrant a federal investigation?
Well, I'm thinking about it. A lot of federal. I want to know where the money went. Now, the American taxpayer, through the United States Congress, and I sit on the Appropriations Committee, put up a lot of federal money. What happened to it? The pumps aren't working. The electricity backup isn't working. The storm drains are not being cleaned out. Now, whenever there's a sprinkle in New Orleans, our people are scared half to death, and they were lied to about it. They were told that it was climate change. You know, that's the mayor's latest thing is climate change. And look, this is America. If Mitch wants to talk about climate change and he wants to talk about sanctuary cities, he's proud that New Orleans is a sanctuary city. If he wants to talk about the monuments, this is America. That's what he can do. But I don't agree with him, but do your day job in the meantime.
Mr. John, I mean, literally in the middle of the flood on more than one occasion a couple of weekends ago, spokespeople for the New Orleans Sewage and Water Board, they actually went out and told the people of New Orleans that don't be worried about the water backing up in the streets. All the pumps are working. All the pumps were at 100%. Do you have any idea? Did they know that was untrue? Were they misled? Who's in charge down there?
Oh, I think they knew it was untrue. And it's a big deal. I mean, New Orleans is below sea level. As you know, it's a bowl. Mm-hmm. And if you're in the bottom of the bowl, you're below sea level. They can handle maybe 1 inch of rain an hour and a half an inch of rain after that. And then the city starts flooding. I've lived there when it's flooded before. It's a serious thing. It's almost like the levees break. And everybody, after we have new levees, everybody thought, well, we're safe now. But the administration forgot to tell folks that, oh, by the way, the pumps to keep us out of danger internally aren't working, and folks were lied to. And this is why people hate government. Now, what we have to do now is fix it. But we got to figure out what to fix, because there have been so many lies told. First, it was just a couple of pumps. Well, first it was climate change. Then they said, well, maybe a couple of pumps being down were part of the problem. And then they said, oh, by the way, if electricity goes out, all the pumps go down because we don't have a backup. And then we found out that the money that was given to the Sewage and Water Board and the city to clean out the storm drains, that's a big part of the problem. They haven't been cleaned out. And then we find out that we've got 5 trucks to clean out the storm drains, 2,500 of them across the city. 3 of the trucks, by the way, are broken. Mm. And you go, golly.
Now, Senator, if the city comes to you because they're not flush with money, they need money to fix this problem. You're going to open that federal pocketbook up for them, aren't you, and help?
Well, I got news for the city and my friends there, and I consider myself part of it. My wife's from there. I used to live there. There is no money tree in Washington, D.C. I've driven around all over it. There's no money tree. We're borrowing to run the federal government, and I am not proud of this, $1 million a minute. We borrow $1.4 billion a day to operate the federal government. That's why we have a $20 trillion deficit. And I want to know what happened to the federal money that the American taxpayer put up already in New Orleans, because it clearly wasn't properly spent. Now, part of the problem appears to be the pensions. I mean, when somebody's fired and they walk home with, $175,000 a year in retirement benefits, plus some of the folks who were fired are getting a big upfront check. That's the average middle class American like me. I can't identify with that. I mean, $175,000 a year pension. We're not talking about the President of the United States here.
Mr. John,
we're talking about a utility worker, and I'm sure they're nice folks. I don't know them all, but $175,000 of taxpayer a year, that's what you get when you're fired. $175K a year.
An article last evening, I think it was, that said that, 17 pumps like today are still not working. Is that legit?
Yeah. And apparently the Sewage and Water Board and the administration, having been caught, they've decided now, and I'm glad they did, okay, we got to fully disclose. And more and more stuff is being disclosed. And we now understand why a couple of weekends ago a big portion of the city flooded. The rain was heavy. It was a lot of rain. I don't know. It was 6 or 8 inches spread over a few hours. But if those pumps had been working, I don't think the flooding would have been as bad as it was.
Senator, Mitch Landrieu's listening to you right now. Say he is. What do you say to him directly?
I would suggest, first I'd say, Mr. Mayor, I'm not trying to meddle in your business, but I sit on the Appropriations Committee of the U.S. Senate, and you're spending federal money, and you're going to ask me for more. You always do, and I understand that. But before I can go back to my colleagues, I've got to tell them what happened to the federal money we put up to make our people safe in New Orleans. And you need to tell the truth. I'm not saying you're lying, but you need to go find out what the truth is. And it's okay, Mr. Mayor, if you want to run for president or whatever you're planning on doing and talk about climate change and talk about sanctuary cities and talk about your opinion, how bad the president is. This is America. You can say what you want, but do your day job first.